بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله وحده، والصلاة والسلام على من لا نبي بعده. أما بعد. And we begin with القراءة الراشدة, the 8th reading, entitled سفر القطار. سفر القطار. Safar, as I'm sure many of us are familiar, that safar is traveling. Safar is traveling. And qitar is a train. Qitar is a train. Inshallah, we'll have words which are derived from these. If you want to look them up, then I'm sure Sin, Fa, Ra, I'm sure we're familiar with that. I'm sure we can find out that from qitar we have qaf, ta, ra. And we can look it up and we will have different derivatives of them inside of this lesson. So safar al-qitar here just means basically traveling by train. And it's mudaf ilayh. Safar is mudaf, qitar is mudaf ilayh majroor. The traveling of the train, or the train's traveling. However, here, Allah knows best, it would be better to translate it as traveling by train. And it's a trip that we will find out the person is telling us about. He begins telling us the story here. He says, لا أنسى سفري الأول. علمت أني مسافر بكرة مع أمي وإخوتي، فاستيقظت قبل السحر وبقيت أنتظر ساعة السفر، واستيقظ أهل البيت مبكرين، وصلينا الصبح، وجاء عمي وبدأت في البيت حركة وأصوات، هذا يجري وذلك يلف الفراش، وهذا ينادي وذلك يجيب، والعم يغضب ويستعجل، والوالد قائم يأمر وينهى ويغضب ويرشد، والخادم يهيئ الزاد، حتى كان وقت الخروج من البيت وقرب ميعاد القطار. This first paragraph that we have here, setting us up for what's going on. He says, لا أنسى, from نسي ينسى. نسي ينسى, meaning to forget. So he says, لا أنسى, meaning I won't forget. أنسى is I won't forget. سفري الأول. As we said, safar up here meant traveling. Safari with this ya, meaning my traveling. Al-awwal is an adjective. It's a sifa. And it has a fatha here because safari is really mansoob, maf'ulun bihi. But because of this ya al-mukhatib, this ya of the one who is talking, then it won't take the sign of mansoob here because of that ya, meaning my traveling. But for instance, if you just said, I won't forget traveling, you would say, la ansa safara. Like this. Because safara would be, I won't forget traveling, because traveling here is a maf'ulun bihi. It's the object of the verb. Nasiya yansa, ansa. I won't forget safari al-awwal, my first trip, my first traveling. علمت أني مسافر بكرة. علمت from alima ya'lamu. We've had this many times. Alima ya'lamu. علمت, I learned. أني, that I. أنا plus أنا becomes أني. Or it could become أنني. But here we have أني. It's the same thing, but that's just what it could become. Right? أني, meaning that I learned that I, مسافر بكرة. مسافر is the word traveler. He's a musafir. There's a famous program, Musafiru Ma'al Quran. Musafirun Ma'al Quran, a traveler, or Al-Musafir Ma'al Quran. I'm not sure exactly which one it is. It's on YouTube where Fahd al-Kendri from here, he goes around the world looking at people memorizing the Quran, and it's got some of the videos have closed caption at the bottom where you can see the English for those who need it. It's a good program. I encourage you to memorize Quran, inshallah. Musafir, as we said, is traveler. Right? So, alimtu anni musafirun. I learned that I am a traveler. Bukratan. Bukra, right? Meaning in the morning. It could also mean, we could also say ghadan, meaning tomorrow. But when we say bukra, then it has the meaning of in the morning. I'm traveling tomorrow, but I'm traveling tomorrow in the morning. And as I said, I just translated I am traveling. That's not the exact Arabic. I am a traveler tomorrow. I learned that I am a traveler tomorrow. But in English, it would probably be better. I learned that I was traveling tomorrow. Ma'a, with, ummi, my mother, wa ikhwati. Ikhwati is the plural of akh. Right? Akh, ikhwa. As for ukht, sister, then it becomes akhawat. Right? Akhawat. But akh becomes ikhwa or ikhwan. Right? Ikhwan, for brothers. So, علمت أني مسافر بكرة مع أمي وإخوتي. I learned that I'm traveling tomorrow, that I'm a traveler tomorrow with my mother and my brothers. فاستيقظت. Fa, here we said, is a particle which we use to show something in an order, right? So he learned he was traveling. Fa, so or therefore. Astayqaztu, I woke up. And we've had this word before, right? Astayqaztu, you're going to look it up. Waqada, right? Look it up under Waw, Qaf, Va. Right? This is form 10. Wastayqaztu, I woke up. So I woke up qabla sahari. Before, qabla is before sahari. Sahari is the last part of the night before Fajr. You may be able to remember that, sahar, from the word sahur. Right? Sahur. Right? Sahur, meaning the food that you eat before Fajr, when you're fasting. Sahari is the last part of the night before Fajr time. Called, and we can relate that, put a mind connection there with the word sahur. Sahur, with a fatha, just as a side note, is the food. Sahur. Suhur, with a dhamma on the scene, is the act of eating that meal. Just as we have the word, sorry about that spin there, just as we have the word wudu, is the act of preparing for salah, whereas wudu is the food, the water that you use. The wudu is the water you use, just like the sahur with the fatha is the food that you eat. Whereas the wudu with the dhamma is the act of making wudu, and the suhoor with the dhamma is the act of taking that food. So he said, فَاسْتَيْقَظْتُ قَبْلَ السَّحَرِ. So I woke up before Fajr, in the last part of the night. وَبَقَيْتُ, there should be a fatha here. وَبَقَيْتُ from baqiya yabqa, baqiya yabqa, yabqa, baqiya yabqa, meaning to wait or remain. I believe we had this in our last lesson. And remain, like it says in Surah Al-Jumu'ah, baqiyatu salihat, the good deeds which remain and are left behind, meaning they stay with you, right? Those good deeds which stay with you. So وَبَقَيْتُ, and I stayed, I remained, أَنْتَظِرُ from نَظَرَ, meaning here, in this form here, نَظَرَ, meaning to intadar, intadar here, meaning to wait. وَبَقَيْتُ أَنْتَظِرُ سَاعَةَ السَّفَرِ, and I stayed there waiting, سَاعَةَ السَّفَرِ, waiting for the hour of traveling, the time of traveling. Sa' can also just mean time, right? أنتظر ساعة مفعول به منصوب. السفر here مضاف مضاف إليه. وبقيت أنتظر ساعة السفر, and I remained waiting for the hour of, or the time of traveling. واستيقظ أهل البيت, here, and he woke up, or in general past tense, Ahlu is the fa'il, the doer of this verb, the subject of the verb. Ahlul bayti, mudaf mudaf ilayh. The people of the house woke up. Mubakkirin, early. This isn't mubakkiran, for instance, describing the state of them waking up early. Mubakkiran. No. Mubakkiran like this would be the state of them waking up early. Mubakkirin is the noun, meaning the people of the house were mubakkirin. They were early. They were early, right? It has the same meaning, but I'm talking about grammatically here. I'm talking about grammatically. So he says, وَالصَّلَيْنَا الصُّبْحِ, وَالصَّلَيْنَا الصُّبْحِ, right? وَالصَّلَيْنَا الصُّبْحِ, and we prayed as-subh. Subh here is the meaning of al-fajr. وَجَاءَ عَمِّي, and he came. Who came? Ammi. Am is the uncle from the father's side, right? In English, we don't distinguish between, we say paternal and maternal, but we don't really talk about it. If we get technical, science or some type of genealogy, maybe we say paternal and maternal, but normally we just say aunt and uncle. Whereas in Arabic they say am and amma from the father, and they say khal wa khala from the mother side, right? Waja'a ammi, then my paternal uncle came. وَبَدَأَتْ فِي الْبَيْتِ, and there began in the house. There began in the house. بدأت, بدأت. This is feminine for begin. There began في البيت حركة. What began? حركة. حركة is movement. Like we have a haraka on top of this fa. and we don't have a haraka on top of that scene. There's no movement on this scene. So we just say fas, and we don't have a movement. But on this ta after it, we have a movement. So we say fasta, and we have a movement of our mouth and our tongue. So haraka, movement, wa aswat. Aswat is the plural of sawt, which is voice. So here, voices. So بدأت في البيت حركة وأصوات. There began in the house movement and voices. هذا يجري. This one is running. وذلك يلف الفراش. And that one is folding. يلف from لف. لف to fold. لف الفراش. Al-firash can be blankets or mattresses or pillows, or maybe we could just say bedding, right? وذلك يلف الفراش. فراش مفعول به منصوب. He's folding the bedding. وهذا ينادي, and this one is calling. From nada, yunadi, from to call. As we said before, this is like the adhan. وَذَلِكَ yujib. And that one is answering. Ajaba yujibu. Ajaba yujibu. Right? Form 4 of jawaba. Right? And that one is answering. وَالْعَمُّ. And the uncle, the paternal uncle, يغضب. He's getting mad. From غضب يغضب. غضب يغضب. يغضب. To get mad. ويستعجل. And he is rushing. From عين جيم لام. He's rushing. Right? Form 10 of that form. عين جيم لام. Meaning to rush. والعام, and the uncle, he's getting angry and he's rushing. Right? والوالد, and the father, not walid, the boy or son, but walid with this alif here. والوالد قائم, he's standing. يأمر وينهى, commanding and prohibiting. ويغضب ويرشد, and he's getting angry and he's guiding, directing. يرشد. رشد يرشد, to guide. Right? Arshada yurshidu, to guide. Form 4. Arshada yurshidu, form 4. Right? To guide and direct. وَالْخَادِمُ يُحَيِّئُ الزَّادِ. Al-Khadim is the singular of khuddam, meaning to servants, for servants. Yuhayyi'u is to get ready. Yuhayyi'u is to get ready from the root ha ya hamza. To get ready. Az-Zad is provisions, like the title Zad al-Ma'ad of Ibn Qayyim. Zad al-Ma'ad, the provisions of the hereafter. Right? Provisions of the final abode. Right? Zad al-Ma'ad. So Zad, wa khayru Zad al-Taqwa, and the best provision is Taqwa, as Allah Azza wa Jalla says. So, وَالْخَادِمُ يُحَيِّئُ الزَّادِ. And the khadim, the servant, is preparing the provisions. He's getting ready the provisions. حَتَّى كَانَ وَقْتُ الْخُرُوجِ مِنَ الْبَيْتِ. Until, hatta is until, right? Kana waqtul khuruj, it was time to leave. Min al bayti, from the house. And this min normally has a sukoon on it. Because this lam has a sukoon, we put a fatha here, as you can see, in order to make the reading smooth. حتى كان وقت الخروج من البيت, until it was time to leave from the house. وقرب ميعاد القطار. قرب is to come close. ميعاد, as we said in the first lesson, was an appointment. ميعاد, right? قرب ميعاد القطار, the appointment of the train. So we continue in the next paragraph. He says, جاءت مركبتان فركبناهما وسلمت على أبي فودعني وداع لي ووصلنا إلى محطتي فأخذ الحمالون الحوائج والمتاع وكانت أيام شتاء فكانت الفرش كبيرة وذهب عمي فاشترى تذاكر القطار. So he says here in this next paragraph, جاءت, the same as جاء above but feminine. So what came? مركبتان. مركبة from rakiba. مركبة means a vehicle or a taxi or a carriage or a cab, however you want to translate it. Something that you are riding. Sometimes it can be a boat. But here we know it's not a boat yet, right? It says جاء مركبتان. مركبة is feminine. So the feminine noun is, our feminine verb here is used here, feminine form. جاءت مركبتان. So two taxis came, we'll say. فركبناهما. So, فركبنا, we got in them, we rode, huma, them. وَالسَّلَمْتُ, and I gave salams. Assalamu alaikum. سَلَمْتُ عَلَى أَبِي, I gave salams upon my father, or to my father. فَوَدَّعَنِي, from وَدَّعَ, meaning to يُوَدِّعُ, وَدَّعَ يُوَدِّعُ. Say وَدَّعَ يُوَدِّعُ. يُوَدِّعُ, meaning to bid farewell, as we have from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Hajjatul Wada', the farewell pilgrimage. The farewell pilgrimage. So, Wadda'ani, he bid me farewell. Wada'a li, and he made dua. Da'a, he made supplication. He made dua li, for me. Wa wasalna, wasala yasilu, wasala yasilu, meaning we reached. Ila al-mahatta. Ila al-mahatta. Hatta is from the root hat. Hatta. Hatta. Hatta yahuttu. Say hatta yahuttu. Right? Meaning to stop. Basically a stop. So mahatta here is like a stop for the bus, for the train, for whatever, wherever something stops at. Ila mahatta. فأخذ حمالون. فأخذ. So they took. Who? So he took, but here حمالون. So I'm going to go here and explain something real quick to you. I thought about explaining in the past, but it's come up a couple times in this lesson so far. So I want to just explain it before we don't understand it, inshallah. I thought we could just get by with not making it too difficult, but I see we need to explain it. Here, ja'at is feminine singular. Here also up above, if we look, bada'at is feminine singular. Haraka is feminine singular, but like in aswat, but aswat is plural. Right? Ghayr aql, non-intellectual, inhuman. Right? And here we have ja'at markabatan, and it's two. So here we have a feminine singular noun, singular, but yet we have multiple things here. And here we have a feminine singular, and we have multiple, even though it's two, we have multiple things there. Here we have akhada, which is singular masculine, لكن حمالون is plural. Okay? Whenever we have, for instance, if we put the verb first and then the subject, the fa'il, right? If it's plural, such as here, hamalun, our verb can be singular, akhadha. If we have another verb, right, wa, for instance, they took them and they placed them, wa wada'u. The second verb would have to be plural, but the first verb, as long as it comes before the noun, it can be singular. So we say ja'at markabatan. 2 rides came, but we use the singular, right? فَأَخَذَ حَمَّالُونَ. Now the opposite, if I put al-hamalun and I put that first, al-hamalun akhadhu. I have to make my verb plural if I put the noun first. Opposite, if I put the verb first, then I can make my verb in the singular form, right? But if I have 2 verbs, such here as akhad al-hamalun wa wada'u, then I have to use my second verb, right? So for instance, I could say, let me erase this. All right, let me erase this. I can say akala at-tulab, right? At-tulab wa sharibu. Sharibu. So because I put the verb first, then before the subject, before the fa'il, then I can use the singular. But my second verb is going to be in the plural form, right? But if I were to write at-tulabu and put tulab first, then I have to say akalu wa sharibu. And I hope that's clear. And hopefully it will come up a little bit more in the future. We'll have more examples. But here we've already had a couple. We had once or twice before, but not very much. But here in this story, it's happening a lot. So I don't want to get too far where we can't understand it. Why am I saying akhada and then hamalun is plural? So فَأَخَذَ حَمَّالُونَ الْحَوَائِجِ. Al-hawa'ij, the plural of haja, we've had that before, the necessities, the things that we need. وَالْمَتَاعِ. Al-mata' is the singular of amtiya. Amtiya. Meaning our bags basically. Right? Mata, the bags. It took the bags. It took our bags. And this word, someone may be familiar with it if they memorize the hadith from At-Tirmidhi. Ad-dunya mata. It can mean something pleasurable, right? Wa khayru mata ad-dunya, and the best pleasure of the dunya, al-mar'atu salihah, a righteous woman. But this mata, it means something that you need and that you take with you, right? So it's something that you enjoy. So al-hawa'ij wal-mata', the things that we need and those other things that we're going to use during our trip. وَكَانَتْ أَيَّامُ الشِّتَاءِ, and it was the days of winter. It was the days of winter. Last time we had inside of men yamna'uka minni, who's preventing you from me, we had kanat ayyam al-sayf. Kanat ayyam al-sayf. Here we have a shita. Shita, the opposite of sayf. فَكَانَتْ الْفُرُشُ كَبِيرًا. So the furush were big, right? So the furush فكانت, they were, الفرش were big. Why? Because the blankets and the pillows and stuff, they need to be heavier. Because it's wintertime, we need thicker blankets, and so on and so forth. وذهب عمي فاشترى, and my uncle went, فاشترى from اشترى يشتري, we've had this before, like in the lesson في السوق, in the marketplace. فاشترى تذاكر مفعول به, but here it's the plural of تذكير. تذكيرا. تذكيرا. Tickets. تذكرة is ticket. تذاكر is tickets. تذاكر القطار مضاف مضاف إليه, the tickets for the train. Here he says, continuing, وسألت عمي عن النول فقال إن النول 3 روبيات والروبية والنصف لك. وسألت from سأل يسأل, to ask. عمي, my uncle, عن النول. This word I can't really find the exact meaning. It must be something maybe that they use in Misr, but it's not something very common. But here it just means the fare. The fare. Right? The fare. Like, how much is the fare? The train fare. Right? فقال, so he said, in a no, the fare, the cost. In other words, we could use maybe a sev, right? The price, the cost. In a no, 3 روبيات is 3 rubies. 3 rubies. والروبية والنصف لك. والروبية, which would be 1 ruby. والنصف, nisf is half. Lak, for you. Because he was little. Right? He was little. So he's young. It was his safarahu al-awwal, his first travel. So he was young. So his ticket was half the price. فَقُلْتُ لِعَمِّي, so I said to my uncle, this li is 2, right? I said to my uncle, أعطني تذكرتي. أعطني تذكرتي. Give me my ticket from Ain Ta Wow. You want to look it up. Right? Give me my ticket. فقال عمي, so my uncle, he said, إنك تضيع تذكرتك. Verily you, تضيع, you would look this up under Bad Ya Ain. But the verb is Da'a Yadi'u. Yudi'u. Da'a Yudi'u. To lose. إنك تضيع تضيع تذكرتك. مفعول به منسوب. You're going to lose your ticket. فقلت, so I said, لا, no. سأحافظ على تذكرتي إن شاء الله. سأحافظ, and we had this before about what happens when he reached 7 years old, because he used to يحافظ على الصلاة. He used to preserve the salah. سأحافظ, I'm going to preserve it, protect it. على تذكرتي, my ticket. Inshallah. Keep trying to erase and hitting the highlighter. Sorry. So he says, فأعطني تذكرتي. فأعطني, so he gave me my ticket. ووضعتها عندي, and I placed it. وضع يضع, واو ضاد عين, وضع, to place something. وضعتها عندي, and I placed it with me. I kept it with me. دخلنا المحطة, we entered into the station, the stop, as we said earlier. We said محطة was stop, and it is the same thing. The bus stop is like the bus station. The train stop is here for sure, a train station, right? دخلنا المحطة, We entered into the station. فرأينا. So we saw. رأى يرى. So we saw رجالا كثيرا. Many men. مفعول به. Here, this is mansoob because the adjective is agreeing with its noun. وَنِسَاءً, and we saw them. This is a badal, a substitute for rijal and women. وَأَطْفَالًا, and again this is a badal, a substitute. So we saw رِجَالًا وَنِسَاءً وَأَطْفَالًا. We saw men and women and children. كَثِيرًا, many of them. Right? وَرَأَيْنَا الزِّحَامَ. رَأَيْنَا زِحَامًا, and we saw ziham, from zayhamin, to mean busyness and crowdiness, right? This extreme crowdiness. Shadidan, extreme crowdedness. وَسَمِعْنَا أَصْوَاتَ النَّاسِ, and we heard the sounds of the people. وَسَمِعْنَا أَصْوَاتَ النَّاسِ, and we heard the sounds, the voices of the people. وَأَطْفَالِ, and the children. وَصَيْحَةُ الْحَمَّالِينَ. وَصَيْحَةُ is the screaming. صَيْحَةُ from صَاد يَا حَا, and the verb is صَاحَ يُصِيحُ, just like ضَاعَ يُضِيعُ, right? The screams, al-hamalin, of the mudaf ilayh, of the people who carry the bags. Maybe we could say the porters, because they're carrying the bags, right? وَالصَّفِيرُ الْقَاطِرَةِ. الصَّفِير is the whistling, right? Of the qatira, similar to the word qitar, which qatira is the engine, the locomotive, the part of the train that has the engine in it and is moving. Al-qatira. So we heard سمعنا أصوات الناس والأطفال, the voices of the people and the children. وصيحة الحمالين, and the shouting or the screaming of the porters. والصفير القاطرة, and the whistling of the locomotive. وكان قطارنا متأخرا, and قطارنا, our train, was كان متأخرا, late, the opposite of مبكرا, right? مبكرا, we learn مبكرا, I wake up, I go to bed early, I wake up early. متأخرا is the opposite of that. So our train was late. فذهبنا إلى المنظر, so we went إلى المنظر, to the reception area. From noon ra, from intidar, we had intidar, right? Antadiru, up above. Now we have mandar, right? Here we have mandar, which is the waiting room, the reception. وَجَلَسْنَا قَلِيلًا, and we sat a little bit. ثُمَّ جِئْتُ إِلَى الرَّصِيفِ, then I came إلى الرصيف. Rasif from Ra, Sad, Fa, meaning the edge of something, right? The edge of something. And here it means the deck where the train is, right? The platform, right? Where the train pulls up. And we can also say when we have the street here, right? And then we have a strip of grass, and then we have a sidewalk, right? This is the Rasif. The sidewalk is also the Rasif. Alright? So, Jittu ila Rasif. I went to the platform. Li ara, to see. Hal ja'a al-qitar. Has the train, this is a question, has the train come? ثم رجعت إلى المنظر. Then I returned to the waiting room or the reception room. وَبَعْدَ قَلِيلٍ, and after a little while, qalil, a little, just a little time, right? A little of anything, but here it means a little time. جاء القطار, the train came. فخرجنا من المنظرة, so we left out, we exited from the waiting room. وقام الناس كلهم على الرصيف, and the people stood. Here we can see a plural nas, even though it is a ismul jins, it's a name of the genre or the type, so qama is clear, no problem. The people stood, all of them, kulluhum ala rasif. Kullu here is a sifa, an adjective for a nas, right? All of them, ala rasif. وَوَقَفَ الْقِطَارِ وَوَقَفَ الْقِطَارِ, and the train stopped. وَقَفَ يَقِفُ, to stop. Like we have in the Quran, wukuf, signs of stopping. We have a little jim sometimes, we have a sad lam, alif sometimes, qaf lam, alif, maksura sometimes. Different signs, wukuf, meaning stop signs. These are stop signs. Some of them are telling you not to stop, but they're called stop signs. وَوَقَفَ الْقِطَارِ, and the train stopped. Another waqafa, the Salaf, one of the Salaf, he said, qif, stop. حيث وقف القوم, where the people stopped. فإنهم وقفوا على العلم, for verily they stopped on knowledge. So don't proceed and go further than what the Salaf said. You want to stop where they stopped, for verily they stopped upon knowledge. So وقف القطار, the train stopped. وَنَزَلَ أُنَاسٍ, وَنَزَلَ أُنَاسٍ, and nazala means to get down from the train, to exit from the train. So when you're on a bus and you get off, you don't ukhruj min al-hafila, you don't ukhruj min al-bus, from the bus, you tenzil from the bus, right? So this is the use, because usually the bus is up higher and you get off. The train is up higher and you get off. Car is higher, you get off, right? You're riding up on something, you're on a horse, you get off, you get down off the horse. You get down off the train, off the bus, off the car, even though a lot of times cars aren't high, right? So nazala unas. Unas is another word for nas. But I found some interesting things when I was looking this up. It says, I looked up what's the difference between nas and unas and insan and bashar. So I found that insan, right, comes from anis, which means to enjoy. So a person, or insan, people, they're called this because they enjoy each other's company, and that they can't live on their own without enjoying the company of the other people, right? So they're called insan. And then bashar, and there are more than one, but this is what I found, and I'm trying to summarize it. Bashar also means skin, or it comes from the word for skin. And the human being is called a bashar because you can see his skin openly, unlike other animals which are usually covered with some type of hair or fur or feathers, like this, right? And then nas, as we had first here, over here, and nas is the plural of insan. The plural of insan. And unas, right? Unas is a group of insan, but not all of them. So when we say nas, we mean like all of the people, right? So common nas, all the people who were kulluhum, as it says, right? Who were waiting for the train. When nazala unas, not everybody gets off at every stop. So some of the people got off, right? Some of the people got off. When we say nas, we mean everybody. Unas means some of everybody, right? And it can get deeper than that. I'm just trying to give you a benefit, which I found quite interesting inside of studying or looking up some of these words. So, we continue. وَنَزَلَ أُنَاسٌ, and some people got down off the train. وَرَكِبَ أُنَاسٌ وَرَكِبْنَا, and other people got on the train. وَرَكِبَ أُنَاسٌ, and others got on. وَرَكِبْنَا, and we got on. رَكِبْنَا, we got on. وَكُنْتُ أُتِلُّ مِنَ الْقِطَار. أُتِلُّ from ta lam, meaning to peek out. وَكُنْتُ أُتِلُّ, I was peeking out مِنَ الْقِطَار, from the train. وَأَرَى الْمَنَاظِرِ, and I was looking at the manazir. This is sights. This is from nadara, to see. Right? From the same root of antazar and all of that, but here it has the meaning of sights. I was looking out from the train, peeking out from the train, looking at all the sights. Meaning, because they're still on the rasif of the Mahattat al-Qitar, the sidewalk of the train station. وَكَانَ الزِّحَامُ شَدِيدًا, and the ziham, the cloudiness, the busyness was extreme, was a lot. في القطار, in the train. وَجَاءَ بَاعِيَةً, وَجَاءَ الْبَاعَ, الْبَاعَ. الْبَاعَ is the plural of ba'i. Ba'i. A seller, the fa'il of selling. So, جاء الباعة, the sellers came. وَجَعَلَ النَّاسُ يَشْتَرُونَ وَيَأْكُلُونَ. You know, on the train, they got people who walk around with their carts selling souvenirs and selling drinks and snacks and food, right? So, جَاءَ الْبَاعَةُ, the sellers, the vendors, we could probably say, came. وَجَعَلَ النَّاسُ يَشْتَرُونَ. جَعَلَ, he said, when it appears with another verb, means to begin. So, and the nas, the people began yashtarun, to buy, wa ya'kulun, and to eat. Wa ashtara ba'd an-nas, and some of the people, ba'd is some of the people, mudaf mudaf ilay, bought min al-ba'ati, from the sellers, hadaya. Hadaya, the plural of hadiyya, meaning gift. Hadaya, gifts. لِأَصْدِقَائِهِمْ وَأَقَارِبِهِمْ. So some of the people, they bought from the vendors gifts. Li, for, أَصْدِقَائِهِمْ, the plural of sadiq. Right? وَأَقَارِب, the plural of qarib, which means relative. We had both of those words previously. Apologize for the spin. وَبَعْدَ قَلِيلٍ, and after a little bit, and it would be قَلِيلٍ, as we see up here. وَبَعْدَ قَلِيلٍ, after some small time, سَفَرَ أَمِينُ الْقِطَار. Safara is whistle, as we said up here. Safir, the whistling of the engine. Safara is to whistle. Amin al-Qitar. Amin here is like the leader or the captain or whatever you call the person in charge of the train. I don't know what it's called. You know, like a pilot, but it's not a pilot. It's the Amin or the captain, we'll say, of the train. Right? Safara, he whistled. The Amin al-Qitar, the person in charge of the train, whistled. وَحَزَّ الْعَلَمَ. حَزَّ يَحُزُّ, meaning to wave. Al-alam is a flag. Maf'ulun bihi, mansoob. And he waved a flag. Basically, as we'll see, telling everyone to get on the train if you're leaving. Al-alam al-akhdar, a green flag, meaning they're leaving. They're getting ready to go. فَأَسْرَعَ النَّاسُ. أَسْرَعَ is form 4 of سَرَعَ, meaning يَسْرَعُ, meaning to speed up. فَأَسْرَعَ, so they rushed. Form 4, to rush. فَأَسْرَعَ النَّاسُ, so the people rushed. وَدَخَلُوا فِي الْقِطَارِ, and they ran into the train. They entered into the train. وَتَحَرَّقَتِ الْقِطَارَةُ وَتَحَرَّقَتِ الْقَاطِرَةُ, Taharraka is, again, we move. Haraka, like a vowel on it, has a movement. This ayn doesn't have a movement. It's just da. Here, this dal has a movement. It's a fatha on it, right? So taharrakat, meaning to move. Yataharraku, right? Al-qatira, the locomotive, the engine. The engine began to move. Wasara al-qitar. Sara is to go, from the word sir, like traveling, right? Sir, sin, ya, ra. And the train began to move, began to travel, right? وَدَخَلَ نُقَّابٌ. Nuqab is a punch, right? Like when you have a ticket, they come and they punch a hole in it to let you know that they have seen your ticket and acknowledge that you are on there, and that you can't use it again in the future. فَدَخَلَ نُقَّابٌ, this person who is punching the tickets, fi arabatina, araba, with the ta marbut at the end, right? It means our car. Trains have cars, right? So araba would be our car, right? Araba could also be a dolly or a cart, like a cart in the grocery store, an araba. So في عرباتنا, دخل النقاب في عرباتنا, the man who punches the tickets entered into our car. فنقب تذاكرنا, and he punched تذاكرنا, our tickets. مفعول به منصوب. وردها إلينا, رد, to return, رد, to return. وردها, and return them, because tadakir is plural, right? So we talk about it feminine singular. وردها, he returned them, إلينا, to us. And we're on, inshallah. So he says, وفي الطريق, and on the way. Again, fi here means on or in the past, but here mostly and on the path, we would say in English. تغدينا, from غدو. غدو meaning, we look it up, غين دال واو, meaning تغدى يتغدى, meaning to eat lunch. بالزاد, with the provisions, basically the provisions that we came with. وأكلنا, and we ate. وشربنا, and we drank. وحمدنا Allah, and we praised Allah. Allah, lafzul jalala, mansub, maf'ulun bihi. وحمدنا Allah. ولم يزل يقف القطار. يزل comes from zay, waw, lam. Or that's how you would look it up, but zala yazulu, right? Yazulu, zala yazulu, meaning to cease. La tazalu ta'ifatun min ummati, there will not cease to be a group of people from my ummah, right? So he says, walam yazal, lam is a particle which makes the verb, here I guess it would be yazalu, not yazulu. I said yazulu, but it's yazalu, right? Zala yazalu. Lam yazal, it should be yazal, but because when we make the sukoon on the lam, we already have a sukoon on the alif there, we drop the weak letter, it becomes lam yazal. Yaqifu al-qitar, the train did not cease to stop. Yaqif, to stop. Waqafa yaqifu, to stop. Ala al-muhattat, of the plural of muhatta, at the stations, at the train stops. Wa yasiru, it did not cease to stop at the stations and then continue. Yasiru, continue, to keep traveling, to keep moving. Hatta, until wasala waqt al-zuhur, until wasala, it reached waqt al-zuhur, the time of zuhur reached. Waqtu is the fa'il. the time of dhuhr, mudaf mudaf ilayh, reached, came in, it entered. فَتَوَضَّعْنَا, so we made wudu from تَوَضَّعَ يَتَوَضَّعُ, right, under waw, dad, hamza. تَوَضَّعُ يَتَوَضَّعُ, right, بِسُرْعَةٍ, so we made wudu بِسُرْعَةٍ, quickly, with speed. على محطة, at one of the stations. وصلينا صلاة السفر, and we prayed the salat of traveling. صلينا الظهر, ظهر مفعول به منصوب. صلينا الظهر ركعتين, 2 rakat. وسلمنا, and we made salams. وصفر أمين القطار, and the Amin, the captain of the train, whistled. فَرَكِبْنَا سَرِيعًا, so we entered or boarded quickly. سَرِيعًا is an adverb, a ظرف, meaning how to do it. How did they enter? They entered quickly. وَقَالَ عَمِّي, and my uncle said, لَوْ كَانَ الْقِطَار, if the train was, low is if, كان القطار, if the train was للمسلمين, for the Muslims, meaning they owned it or it was for them only, لكان فيه مكان للوضوء والصلاة, then there would be in it a place, or on it a place, مكان للوضوء والصلاة, for wudu and salat. This lit is for wudu and salat. يؤذن فيه, the adhan would be called in it. وَنُصَلِّي جَمَاعَةً, and we would pray in congregation. وَفِي الْعَصْرِ, and at Asr time, وَصَلَ الْقِطَار إِلَى مَحَطَّتِنَا, the train reached our mahatta, our stop, our station. وَكُنْتُ أُتِلُّ مِنَ النَّافِذَةِ, and I was peeking, أُتِلُّ again, مِنَ النَّافِذَةِ, the singular of nawafidh, which is windows. We also probably know the word shubak. Shubak for windows. What's the difference between this window and this window? Shubak is a window that has a screen in it, right? A shabaka is a net, or like a spider's web. It's called a shabaka. A shubak is a net or a trap. So a window that can be open, but it has a screen in it. A nafida is just a window, just a glass, or it could even be just the opening. Because actually, if you go and look at the word window, even in English, window just means the opening. You actually have you have the sill and the glass, and all those are different parts of that, but the window itself is just the opening to the outside. Anyway, وَكُنْتُ أُطِلُّ مِنَ النَّافِذَةِ, I was peeking out of the window. فَرَأَيْتُ هَاشِمًا, so I saw, from ra'a yara, past tense, فَرَأَيْتُ, so I saw Hashiman, I saw Hashim. It should not have that fatha there. It should just be Hashiman. So I saw Hashim was Sa'idan ala Rasif, on the platform, on the sidewalk. Wa araftahuma, and I knew them too. I knew them both. Wa salamtu alayhima, and I gave them salams. Wa sallama alayya, and they gave me salam. Them too gave me salams as well. Alayya, upon me. They sent salams on me. Wa wasaltu, and I arrived, ila qaryati, to my village. Wa qabaltu asdiqai. Wa qabaltu, I received. Meaning they all came to see him and he received them, right? He received them. He welcomed them, basically, right? And into his house too. Or he met up with. It could be I met up with, right? I I met أصدقائي, my friends, وإخواني, and my brothers, وجعلت, and I began, أحدثهم, because I got a verb here, جعل means to begin, so I began, أحدثهم, to talk to them, حدث يحدث, to talk, to narrate, to tell the story, right, to just talk. وجعلت أحدثهم, I began to talk to them, حديث البلد, about hadith, meaning what's going on, البلد, in the city, right, where he was at before. وأخبرهم, and to inform them, form 4 of خبر, we had that before. وأخبرهم بعجائبه, عجائب is the plural of ajiba, meaning strange things, right? Ajiba. Bi'ajaibihi, and to tell them about its strange things or its amazing things. Wa ahki, ahki is to tell a story, from haka yahki, haka yahki, to tell a story, right? To narrate, to report, to relate, like a story. وأحكي لهم, and I would tell the story to them, ما رأيت في السفر, of what I saw in my travels. If there's any questions, then you can contact me through the thing below, but hopefully this was beneficial for you. And I know it's been kind of long, but hopefully it hasn't been too long, and hopefully everyone is benefiting. This will be the last story until April. This will be the last story until April. Last reading until April. Starting next week, there's a big conference going on here in Kuwait with the Shia from Saudi and Kuwait. And after that, I'm going to, inshallah, go to Umrah, and I will be there for 2 weeks. So until the end of April, I return March 30th, right? And so I will have a day or so, maybe, to rest one day. And then April 1st, inshallah ta'ala, we'll begin all our other classes back. So that Friday, whatever Friday that is, the next Friday in April, I'm not sure, I don't have a calendar in front of me, then that will be our first class. Be patient. If you haven't listened to the other ones, you can go back and listen to them again. Or if you wanted to check out some of the other classes, then this is a good time for you to benefit from that time, to go back and review and catch up on some of the other classes from the Nawaqid al-Islam, al-Qawaid al-Arba, Thalathatul Usul, and whatever we reach from in Nawaqid al-Islam before we finish. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.